Hello, everybody. Thank you and welcome back to the CNY family. Those of you that are new, thank you for joining us. Okay, so if you have not seen part one of this, the Karlie Guse story, make sure you go and check that out. Now, let's get into part two. So the next day, they had huge search parties. They had, and also the FBI got involved. They had helicopters, drone, dogs, all brought in and searched a 10-mile radius around the home and found nothing. Now, Kenneth Dutton came forward on October 14th and said that around 7:15 yesterday morning, he saw a woman wearing gray sweatpants and a white shirt walking toward Highway 6. The next day, on October 15th, a woodworker was driving down Highway 6. The next day, on the 15th, a woodworker came forward and said that he was driving down Highway 6 and also saw a woman with long hair and wearing the same exact clothes as what the other witnesses had said. Gray sweatpants, white shirt. She was standing near the intersection leading to where Karlie lived around 7:30 a.m. Now the dogs picked up her scent at the bus stop, but Karlie frequently sat at that bus stop and talked to Donald on the phone. She would go there and just to get out of the house. So, that doesn't tell you much. Highway 6, though, is part of one of the largest transcontinental highways in the U.S., and it stretches from Cali all the way to Massachusetts. That's a long way, and there's a lot of states in between. Now, here's where things get a little crazy. On October 22nd, Dateline had reached out to Zach and Melissa to see if they wanted to do an interview. Now, Melissa had said that the cops told them not to do any interviews, but they did the interview and they were very vague on the things that they said. Now, this is where it gets sketchy. During the interview, Melissa said that they all ate, this was her story during the interview, that they all had eaten dinner and went to bed. And Melissa said that when she went to bed with Zach and Karlie went to bed alone. Melissa said that she got up at 5:45 in the morning to wake the kids up so everybody could start their day. And she saw the boys and she saw Karlie. She woke them up. And then she said that she decided that she wanted to go back to bed. So she went back to bed. And then when she woke up sometime later, she realized Karlie was gone. After that, Karlie's mom, Lindsay, got super suspicious, started asking questions, and just was not having any of it. After Lindsay started asking questions about about Melissa possibly maybe doing something to Karlie, if there being some kind of, scuffle or whatever, Zach and Melissa got very upset and literally refused to even talk to Lindsay anymore, which to me absolutely says something. Because first of all, you are a stepmother of this girl, right? And she came up missing. She disappeared under your watch, okay? And the mother is asking questions, rightfully so. Melissa should be doing everything to bend over backwards to prove to Lindsay that she has nothing to hide and she did nothing. But when Lindsay started asking questions and Zach and Melissa literally just shut her off and did not have any more communication with her, to me, that says a lot. On October 25th, Zach and Melissa and also Lindsay spoke to Nancy Grace. Now, they were very vague. Nancy kept asking them, what do you mean she was scared? What do you mean? What was she doing? How was she acting this way? Like, explain this to me. And finally, after Dad not knowing how to answer these questions, he said, because she told us. Now, Zach said at times Karlie was acting afraid of them, very afraid of them, was standing in a corner, was very just afraid of them. And then, a few minutes later, she would be totally fine and telling them that she loved them. Nancy then asked Melissa why she said she was in jeans. Okay, listen. Why she said Karlie was in jeans when everybody else said that she was in sweatpants. To which Melissa responded, Karlie was always in jeans and would never leave the house in sweatpants, so I just assumed that she was wearing them. Which to me makes absolutely no sense when you have two witnesses that say they saw a woman in gray sweatpants and a white shirt. When Nancy asked if her gray sweatpants were home, Melissa said, well, I have no idea. Like, she has so many clothes. I have no way of knowing. Nancy then went on to say that it was actually like pulling teeth to get any information from Zach and Melissa. Now, normally, with parents who have nothing to hide and are very worried about their child, they can't give you enough detail. They can't give you enough information. But Nancy just said it was like pulling teeth with these two. Now, when Lindsay talked to Nancy, it was the complete opposite. According to Lindsay, when she got to the okay, so after they called and told Lindsay that her daughter was missing, okay, when she got to the house, that was 9 hours later. Okay, 9 hours later. And when she got there, the cop said, okay, now before we leave, we have to go in and check the house. And Lindsay was like, what? You've been here. My daughter has been missing for 9 hours. And you guys, no cops have been in that house to check to make sure, like, see if anything is out of order, see if maybe a struggle took place, check for anything. And let's not forget that during these 9 hours, there was people, friends of the family, all up and in and out of that place. And the cops never even bothered to check. Like, that's crazy. Zach said that he put this out and said that Karlie's shoe prints were found up on a mountain, but also down by the highway. Nancy said that it almost seemed as if Karlie's prints are being put here and there as a distraction. Mom Lindsay also agreed. Now, Mom is calling out every inconsistency, right? Then Nancy went on to talk about how in the world could he determine if it was her shoe print in the sand? So she had a footprint expert on there who actually said it's completely impossible to get a footprint off of sand and then to say that, oh, it's Karlie's footprint. So, I mean, there's some very sketchy things going on with these people involved here. And what's really weird is there was only one shoe print outside of the home. Not two, as if people were taking steps, but one shoe print. Almost as if, like, you put your hand in a shoe and went out and purposely made a print there. Now, the only reason that somebody would do that is to make people think that this person indeed did leave the property, when, in fact, maybe they did not leave at all, ever. Now check. This is crazy, okay? This is nuts. Melissa said that she would never leave the house in sweatpants. Donald, her boyfriend, said she didn't even own sweatpants. Now listen to this. Mom Lindsay, doesn't think that the girl that was seen walking around was actually Karlie. Indeed, she thinks that everybody saw Melissa. She thinks that they saw Melissa when she was out looking for Karlie. Because guess what? That morning, Melissa had on a white shirt and gray sweatpants. Now, did she purposely put herself out there to make sure that witnesses saw a girl? You know what I'm saying? And then go home, change your clothes, and go back out looking for your missing stepdaughter. Could be. But how crazy is that? Now, then they go on the Dr. Phil show. And when Dr. Phil asked Melissa about the timeline discrepancies in the Dateline interview, okay, because she had told a different story than what she had originally said in her Facebook Lives. So when Dr. Phil asked Melissa about the timeline discrepancies in the Dateline interview, she just came right out and said, well, I told a false story. What the F? You told a false story. Now, the reason being, she said, since law enforcement had told her not to give out any information on any public interviews, she didn't know what to do, so she made it up. I'm calling complete and total BS because your stepdaughter is missing. You are not going to make up lies and tell people. You're not going to make up false stories. You want her to be found. So you're just straight up going to tell the truth, or you're not going to say anything at all if it was really about withholding the truth. If it was really about withholding information for the investigation, you would not make up a false story to put out to the public. It just doesn't make sense and it doesn't add up. Now, when Lindsay talked to Dr. Phil about the recording, now remember Melissa took that recording, audio recording of Karlie that night when she supposedly picked her up walking down the road. And then she made that recording. This is where Lindsay goes in to talk about it. Now, Lindsay thinks that Karlie never left that house. She either OD'd or had an accident, as she put it. And when both Zach and Melissa said that she was laying there and they saw her laying there with her eyes wide open, like that's was she already gone at that point? Now, they didn't release the audio. At this point, they had not released that audio to the public. And at the time, they even refused to let Dr. Phil hear it. Eventually, they did. And it played a portion of the recording. Now, you can hear Karlie clearly very, very afraid. Clearly. And she is saying to Melissa, would you call 911? Would you call 911? Asking her to call 911 because she felt like she was going to die. That's what she said. And Melissa said, for what reason, Karlie? Why would I call 911? So then Karlie said, well, if there was an emergency, if anything happens to me, will you call 911? To which she replied, yes, I will. Now, hold on. Let me find this part. Give me this a second. Okay, now here, she said on her live. So this was after the audio recording was released. She said, now being a mother, of course I did not call 911. Why would I? It never even crossed my mind. She was just high on marijuana and she was fine. She did not seem fine. She did not seem fine at all. And the right thing to do would have been to call 911 and get her the help, because even they had said that maybe it was possibly laced with something. And you can see what is happening. Why in the world wouldn't you call 911? It just, if you cared, that, I'm sorry, that would have been the call that you made. Even if you were in fear of getting in trouble for whatever reason, get over it, right? Like, you don't know what's going to happen. She's clearly in a terrible state right now. Okay, now Lindsay came out and started saying, well, listen, Zach has a history of being abusive. When he drinks, he's hit Kane before, who is Karlie's older brother. He's hit Kane before, this has happened. So could it possibly, I think about this. Now, this is her speaking. I think about this. If she came home and Melissa said she lied about the party and she was all high, could he have possibly just lost control and did something to her? Now, which at the time everybody just thought was outlandish. However, in February of 2021, Zach was arrested for a felony for inflicting corporal injury on a spouse. On the 911 call, it said that the mother possibly had a broken shoulder. Now, Zach and Melissa said that she wasn't depressed, but her friends told a different story. When investigators spoke to her friends, her girlfriends, that they had said that since Karlie started dating Donald, she started just smoking a lot more weed and she seemed more depressed. When they talked to Lindsay and asked her if Karlie was depressed, Lindsay said that Karlie did seem a little bit depressed ever since her, Zach and Melissa and herself had made that move to Chalfont because all of her friends were in Bishop. She had, she lived in the middle of nowhere. Now, however, when going through her phone, when investigators went through her phone, they did find that a few weeks prior, Karlie had Googled a suicide crisis hotline. But Lindsay said that Zach was on antidepressants because he said that he, quote unquote, couldn't do life anymore. So there's no actual proof that she was looking it up for herself or her father. 1 month after Dad got arrested for DV, Karlie's brother Kane was arrested for felony assault with a firearm. And then in May of 2021, there was another 911 call from Zach and Melissa's house. Kane was there with his girlfriend and I guess stabbed himself and threatened to take his own life. Melissa took the girlfriend home, and during the time that Melissa was gone, Zach and Kane got into a fight, and by the time that the cops got there, Kane had already taken off. Now, somebody had posted online that Karlie, that Melissa's story is not true, and this is actually what happened that morning. Karlie's dad actually called Melissa at 7:30 a.m. when he woke up because she wasn't there, and he wanted to know where she was. She was already out looking for Karlie at that point. That is when Zach found out Karlie was missing. Now, if in fact that is true, that's even more suspect because if you're the stepmom, and you realized your stepdaughter's missing, wouldn't the first thing you did be to wake up her father and tell him? I'm just saying. Now, a week later, cops had set up a week after she went missing, cops had set up a checkpoint on the highway to ask if anyone driving through had possibly seen her. Nobody did. When James, the friend whose house they were at before the football game, when James turned 18, he was actually arrested for giving weed to a minor pertaining to Karlie. Now, after cops went in and seized that bong, they tested it, and it tested for nothing, just cannabis. That's the only thing it tested for. Now, 4 years ago, a kid named Joey Mack has a YouTube channel, was out riding dirt bikes with friends and had a weird encounter with a girl who was barefoot and holding something wrapped up in her arms in the middle of nowhere. She ran towards them, so they left. Now, this was 5 hours away from Chalfont. He said she was dressed too nicely to be a bum, but obviously wasn't hiking because she was barefoot. So they called the police. They called the Mono County Sheriff's Office. And he said they acted like they didn't even care about the tip. Like they just blew him off, didn't do nothing with it. So then he called his own sheriff's office. And anyway, long story short, they find out that it wasn't Karlie. It was actually another missing girl. So there have been two possibilities that have come out since all of this happened. One being that she was out in the desert. She was eaten by coyotes because a man said that he had found a pair of women's underwear with bites taken out of them. And he thinks from bone fragments found in poop and coyote poop that that's proof of what happened to her. However, there is one more possibility, and this one seems like very, very possible. So this past August, a recovering drug addict looking to make amends said that living with guilt of knowing what happened to Karlie, he has to get it off his chest. He can't live with it anymore. And in order for his recovery, he has to let it out. Now, he did not state what actually happened, but here's what he said. He saw her at a party, and this was in 2021. He saw her at a party in Tonopah, Arizona, which is 2 hours away from her home. At that party, there was an incident, and he just wanted to get the truth out there because he couldn't deal with it anymore. He gave the make, model, and location of a vehicle that he says is the vehicle that brought Karlie to that area. The cops have since seized that vehicle and a bunch of items in it and had it and sent it out for testing, which they are still currently waiting on the results of. But there is a lot of sketchy stuff, guys, happening in this story. In my opinion, if you want my honest opinion, if your child goes missing, you can't give enough detail. You would remember every minute of that day because you would be reliving that day every day in your head, playing it over and over and over again to see if you possibly had missed something or, something had slipped your mind, whatever. You would have that down pat. And another thing, there would never be a reason to lie or to hold back any information when it comes to finding your child. So when I see cases like this and I see parents or step parents that act this way, of course, it makes me very suspicious and it throws a bunch of red flags up in my head because in reality, loving parents who have nothing to do with their child's disappearance, who have absolutely nothing but love for their child, do not act this way, period. Period, point blank, that's it. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. I love you guys. Stay strong, stay healthy, stay safe. Keep asking those hard questions. Keep spreading that light. And I will see you all next time.